All right. Hey, y'all. I am going to do a little bit of presentation on some things that we've been going over in the classroom. Especially, we're going to talk about verbs. We've been in Unit 3 of our grammar books, and there's also a handout that students who are here at school have been working their way through, and I'll make a copy of that available on Google Classroom as well. But here's the big picture for this lesson. We're going to talk about big categories of verbs and then also examine especially action verbs and transitive underneath that category, okay? So here's the overall big picture for verbs. Up here you can see a verb is a word used to describe an action, a state of being, or occurrence. And so we break verbs down into a few different categories. We have action and we have linking. Those are the two big categories that we're dealing with. Under action, we're going to call every single action verb that we ever look at, we're going to call it either transitive or intransitive. And then when we have linking verbs, these are ones that don't convey action, we're going to classify them as either dealing with the condition of something or state of being. So let's talk about action verbs first. You could know something about these two words, transitive and intransitive, even if you don't know what those words mean. Just by looking at them, can you tell something about those words? If you look carefully, you'll see that there's a prefix over here on intransitive, and that in means not. So anything that a transitive verb is, intransitive is going to be the opposite of that. All right. So let's look at these definitions. A transitive verb carries action across to another word. That stem trans means across. And so we're talking about words that carry action across to another word. We'll end up calling that other word a direct object. You'll see in just a little bit. Then intransitive verbs must be verbs that don't carry action across to some other word. Okay, so transitive and intransitive, every action verb we look at is going to be either transitive or intransitive. If we look over at the other category of verbs, these linking verbs, we're going to see that they break down into verbs that discuss condition and verbs that discuss state of being. So condition linking verbs are ones that look like action verbs, but they actually show condition of something. Let me give you an example. Take the verb taste. Think of the verb taste. You could say, I taste pizza. And that's good, right? That's an action that you're doing. I taste pizza. That's something that I'm currently doing. However, you could also say, the pizza tastes good. Now, there's a difference between those two statements. I taste pizza. Pizza tastes good. In the first one, I'm doing the action. In the second one, the pizza is not doing that action, right? If it is, you're living inside a nightmare where pizza can taste things, and that's strange and you need to wake up. So if I say pizza tastes good, I'm using that verb taste as a linking verb that's talking about the condition of that pizza. It tastes good. The condition of it is that it is good. So that's a verb like, again, that's a verb like taste. I'm going to see if I can write on here. I don't know. You know what? Let me see if I can plug in a mouse or something. And then my digital handwriting is going to be beautiful. Let's see if I can make a couple of notes on here. All right. Let's see how this works. Oh, yeah. All right, so taste, look at that. Beautiful. Looks like my 3-year-old's writing. All right, so taste, that's one of these ones that could be a condition verb. There are other verbs like this. You could say with the verb feel, you could say this desk feels hard. Okay, so we're talking about that as its condition. You could also say, I feel this desk, and then it's action. But if you're talking about it as the condition of this desk, then it's going to be a linking verb. It's not conveying action. It's dealing with condition. So taste, feel, you could probably come up with some others of these. Smell would be another verb that fits into this category, because you can say, I smell something funny, and that would be an action. But you could also say, man, that pizza smells great. And again, you're not talking about the pizza doing something. You're talking about the condition of the pizza. So those are examples of condition verbs. They're linking verbs discussing the condition. There are some other ones. I'll put a list up here. The word seem. We could say the word appear. Oh yeah, this is beautiful. Beautiful handwriting. Appear is another one of those, and you could come up with probably even more than that. But those are examples of that kind of verb, okay? So be aware of that. That's what we're looking for when we talk about condition verbs. The only other category that we have that we need to know about would be being verbs. All right, these are really the easier ones to find because there are 8 of them and they're just very well established. They are, if I can get this going, they are am, is, are, was, were, be, being, and been. All right, so that's our huge idea with verbs, is that we deal with 2 main kinds, action and linking. And over here under action, we have transitive, which carries action across to another word, and we have intransitive, which does not carry action across to another word. We'll see examples of those on the next slides. And then we have linking verbs. Some are dealing with condition, some are dealing with state of being. Okay, let's go on to the next. We're talking about transitive and intransitive. So we're only in action verbs right now. We're going to forget about linking verbs for the time being and talk about action verbs. A transitive verb transfers action to some other word, all right? It transfers action. Transitive transfers. You could say that a couple of times and probably get it stuck in your head. Transitive transfers. So here's an example. Eric threw the ball to Jimmy John during the game. So what's the subject here? It's Eric. What would you say is your action verb? It's threw. So here's the way that we deal with this. To determine if an action verb is transitive, we plug it into the pieces of this equation. So it's a little bit like math here. We're going to plug in the subject and the verb and the question, what? So here's what that looks like. Eric threw what? And if we get a noun or pronoun answer to that question, then we have a transitive verb. So what is that? Eric threw what? Ball. So since we can get that answer, threw is a transitive verb because it transfers action to the ball. So you look at the sentence and you say, okay, Eric threw what? Threw the ball. Ball is the direct object, and that means that threw is a transitive verb. Here are some examples. It would be a really good idea for you guys to just pause the video and try this on your own. Let me put one other idea up here real quickly. If I can get to my pen, which doesn't look like it's going to show up for me. One thing that we would add to this screen is up here where it says subject and verb. Subject plus verb plus what? That's our question. To tell if a verb is transitive or intransitive. If you have this equation, we need an equal sign. Subject plus verb plus what equals direct object. That's where we're heading, okay? So maybe pause the video, see if you can come up with the subject and verb for each of these sentences and see if something answers this subject plus verb plus what question. In the first example, Timothy is the subject, gave is the verb, and so we just say, all right, Timothy gave what? What answers that question? Award. That means that gave is a transitive verb. It's transferring action to the award. In the next example, everyone ran the race with great speed. Everyone is the subject. Ran is the action verb, and you say everyone ran what? Well, everyone ran race, right? That answers the question, and that means that ran is transitive. And then how about this sentence? Please hang your backpack on the hook over there by the wall. What's the subject of that sentence? It's actually an understood you. Remember, with an imperative sentence, a command or a request, usually we have an understood you as the subject. So, you hang what? You hang backpack. And that, since it answers the question, means that hang is a transitive verb. It's transferring action to some other word. All right? One more idea for this. Now that we have found those words, we're just going to use a term. We're going to call them direct objects. The word that receives the action of the verb is called the direct object. And notice this, it will be a noun or a pronoun, not an adjective or an adverb. So we need to be aware of that. We're not going to find adjectives and adverbs answering this subject plus verb plus what question. It's going to be nouns and pronouns, and we'll call these direct objects. So award is the direct object, race is the direct object, and backpack is the direct object. And if you have a direct object, you have a transitive verb. That is the defining characteristic of a transitive verb. It's that you have a direct object. So here are one more set of sentences for us to take one step further in this. If you have a direct object, there's a possibility for one other type of complement. And when I use that word complement, I'm talking about what we call direct objects and indirect objects. If we have a direct object, we might have an indirect object. Okay? So here's how that would look. We look at a sentence like, Timothy gave Betty the award for safekeeping. Now, you should already be able to find out what the subject and the verb are and whether or not there's a direct object. Maybe you pause the video and go ahead and do that much for these two sentences, subject, verb, and direct object. Once you've done that, we could say whatever word receives the direct object is called the indirect object. And here's what that looks like. Timothy gave what? Timothy is our subject. Gave is our action verb. And we say, Timothy gave what? Did he give Betty? It'd be odd to pick up Betty and give her to somebody. I wouldn't say that would be the appropriate way to handle the situation. So Timothy gave what? What's actually being given here? It's award. That's the direct object. And if we have a direct object, we go on and ask one more question. Here's another formula that we need to know. Subject plus verb plus direct object, and the question to whom or for whom equals indirect object. So that would look like this. Plug these things in. Subject, verb, direct object, and then this question. Timothy gave award to whom? Who's getting the award? It's Betty. So Betty is the indirect object. With these ones, guys, it's as simple as plugging into a formula. To find the direct object, we look at the subject and verb and say, what? What is that verb transferring action to? And then if we find a direct object, we go one step further and say, does anything get that direct object? And we plug into this formula, subject plus verb plus direct object, to whom or for whom. So on this next sentence, Eric threw me the football yesterday. Eric is the subject. Threw is the verb. And so we would say, all right, well, Eric threw what? He didn't throw me. I don't think Eric could throw me. Got a little bit of weight to me. So Eric threw football. That's the direct object. And once we have the direct object, we go one step further. We plug into one more formula, and we say, Eric threw football to whom? You see how we use the direct object in this next equation? Find the direct object, and then we plug it into our next formula. Eric threw football to whom? To me. So me is the indirect object. So, to review, transitive verbs are action verbs that transfer action to the direct object. And we also could say sometimes, if there is a direct object, sometimes there will also be an indirect object that is receiving whatever this direct object was. To whom or for whom? Who does this thing go to? That would be the indirect object. That's it for this video, and I'll do another one soon that's going to deal with our next set of ideas.